bit.
Okay. I want to thank everybody for coming, even the people who are getting paid to be here. Thank you for coming. First off, for everybody who doesn't know this, first off, everybody go to the campaign website. It's christianforcongress.com. I suppose everyone's heard of it, but everybody out watching their TVs, go to christianforcongress.com. That's the campaign website. I'm going to talk briefly about how I got into the race for the people who don't know this. It started back in 2005. I put up the campaign website with the idea of maybe raising the bar a bit and helping to expand politics into the internet, which I think has a lot of promise for raising the process above the soundbite and bumper sticker level, help politicians to talk about things in greater detail than they can get into in the normal format. So I had the internet campaign in the last election in 2006, and I had a bit of success at it, really more than I expected, and really enough to justify the $9 that I spent on the domain name. And I managed to call Inglis out on the war, which surprised me. And if nothing else, it was one way to get a response from your congressman, so that was good. At the end of the election, I wrote about the possibility of running as a Democrat, join the mainstream, basically. It was going to be a much bigger challenge, obviously, than just having a website and running as an independent. So I kept the website going, and then some months ago I was having lunch with Griff. William Griffith over here was the previous Democratic nominee, and he suggested that I run, throw my hat in the ring, and gave me some encouragement in that direction. And now here we are some months later, and I'm giving a speech about it. So I'd like to briefly touch on some of the major issues, and of course these are dealt with in greater detail on the website, and I'd encourage people to go there and read about them in greater detail. And then after I talk about the issues, I'd like to talk about the primary and talk about where I see that going. As probably most people know, I have of course been actively opposed to the wars in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan since before they were launched. They were unnecessary, particularly the attack on Iraq, and it was reasonably clear that both wars were going to be open-ended bloodbaths. Further, it is unconscionable that the Bush administration does not have so much as an estimate of the number of dead in our wars, because that has been the cost, and we do not officially acknowledge it, and that needs to be rectified. I am an advocate of the Constitution, which really ought to go without saying. We need to get back to the idea of constitutionally restrained government, and we substantially departed from that idea. I'm for a balanced budget, I'm for free and fair trade, and the free market generally. I kind of consider that to be common sense. I'm against the Bush administration's assault on constitutionally guaranteed rights and the rule of law generally, and we obviously need to guarantee the integrity of the voting system. Essentially everybody, but I think the legislators in this country agree on that. We need to rein in the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about. It needs to be a more commonly known statistic that this country spends more on weaponry than the rest of the world combined, which simply cannot be sustained on any rational basis. If you're hundreds of percent above the average, that might be excessive. When you're thousands of percent above the average, that is plainly out of control. So that needs to be rectified. We need to take Eisenhower's warnings seriously. And of course, we need to deal with all the other problems which have grown steadily worse over the years. The high cost of health care, the miscompare between immigration laws and immigration reality, the problems with energy and the environment, and all of the other difficulties you get with a government that's not responsive to all those problems. I'd now like to finish up by talking a bit about how I see the primary. Should we hold and fix that?
You keep on going.
Okay. We just lost a light here, so anyway. I'd now like to finish up by talking a bit about how I see the primary going. And these remarks are structured around a primary between myself and Paul Corden, since Brian McCandless only got into the race yesterday, and I really don't know very much about him. I've read a little bit about him online. He has a business website, but he doesn't, as far as I know, have a campaign website. I will know more about him eventually. I think I have a good chance of winning the primary. The Greenville News has labeled me the anti-war candidate, which wasn't really a label I sought, but I'll take it if it's going to be assigned to me. The Democratic turnout in the 2006 primary was 2.9% of registered voters. The turnout in 2004 was a little higher, 3.3 or 3.4%. And like I say on the website, you need a hot button to get people to turn out for a Democratic primary. And the war in Iraq is a hot button. It's been going on for over 5 years. The price tag is going to be in the trillions of dollars. The number of dead, by some estimates, ranges into as high as 1 million. Paul Corden hits that button now as a matter of course. He's a Democratic candidate. He couldn't very well be coming out for the war. I think he's genuinely against it. But he's hitting that button now. I've been hitting it for over 5 years now, and not with just talk. So the war is basically an issue I own, and it ought to turn out the voters, and they ought to vote for me on that basis.
Let's keep on going.
Yeah, okay. It's not enough on its own. I'm not going to win the primary on a single issue. I'll have to do all the legwork and pursue the campaign vigorously, but it's going to be a significant factor, and it could be determining. I want to try and frame the primary in terms of change, and of course all politicians talk about change. I talk about change. Paul Corden talks about change. Brian McCandless will certainly talk about change. Bush. Politicians all talk about change. If we weren't changing things, then they would just stay the same, and you wouldn't very well need politicians. But change is something that I can credibly claim to be bringing to the process. Good, bad, or indifferent, I think most people would agree that I'm a different sort of candidate. And when I say change, you ought to be able to rely on it. I can't guarantee what I would change or how I would change it, but I would not go to Washington and be a regular politician. So just on the basis of change, I think I would be a strong candidate. I don't think Paul and I are particularly far apart on the issues. I've talked to him. We had coffee. He and Griff and I got together and talked about things. But we'll give people a fairly clear choice between what sort of candidate they really want. People are going to disagree with me more than they disagree with Paul, because I'm going to say more for them to disagree with, and I'm going to say some things that need to be said, whether those things sell or not. So we'll see how that goes. We've been talking about having some debates, and Griff has consented to sort of see that process along, and we've been talking formats, and hopefully Paul and Brian McCandless will agree to participate in a debate, one or more debates, before the primary. And this all leads into the last point I want to make about who has the better chance against Inglis, assuming Inglis wins his primary against Jeter, which he may or may not. But my experience has been with Inglis for the past 2 years, and as I say on the website, I don't think Inglis can be defeated from solidly inside the mainstream. He's a Republican incumbent in a solidly Republican district. He has the money, he has the experience, and he knows the business. I think if you want to beat him, you have to take him down. You have to take the grin off of his face. You have to bring the issues to him. You have to peel off enough of his electorate to win a majority. You have to get to 51%, and you're not going to get those people off of his fence. You're going to have to take them off the fence. You're going to have to ask them some hard questions about what has Inglis actually done for you, what has Inglis actually accomplished. How long do you want to be on the other side of the world spending trillions of dollars? How many more of your sons and daughters do you want to basically throw away for no good reason? How long do you want perpetual war? How long do you want the budget to continue to operate in the red? How long do you want to put up with basically an assault on the Bill of Rights? How long do you want to tolerate these things? You have to ask them those hard questions, and I don't think it's the sort of campaign that Paul Corden realistically is going to wage, and I will wage it. So the website again is christianforcongress.com. Are there any questions?